Welcome back to another episode of Destinations, Dents, and Discoveries. On this episode, we are going to be leaving Chicken and traveling on the Taylor Highway. We will join the Alaska Highway to its end in Delta Junction, and then get on the Richardson Highway on our way to Fairbanks.
Yeah, and then we're going to tour Fairbanks, but then the really cool part, we're going to fly up to Bettles, Alaska, which is a tiny little town up above the Arctic Circle. From there, we are going to attempt to visit two of the most difficult and least visited national parks in the whole system. Gates of the Arctic National Park and Kobuk Valley National Park. We'll be doing that by Floatplane. As long as the weather's good, all should be well. So welcome back to another episode of Destinations, Dents, and Discoveries, and enjoy.
Here we go.
Made it to the end of the Alaska Highway.
Woohoo!
We came to take our picture at the famous sign.
Woohoo!
But there's one problem. The famous sign
Wah, wah.
is missing. A lot of our drive, in typical Alaska fashion, was gorgeous, but then the sky started to darken, and that's when we found out that there was a lightning-caused fire that started about a month before we got there and was still burning and blackening out the sun. By the time we got to Fairbanks, all was well, and it was beautiful. But before we could do too much exploring, there was some housekeeping we needed to do. Remember how dirty the trailer got at the top of the World Highway? It was time for a bath. With Al looking shiny once more, we headed up the hill to the University of Alaska Fairbanks to visit the Museum of the North. We skipped it on our first trip to Alaska, but we're really glad we made time for it this time around. The museum's collection is surprisingly varied, from ivory carvings and intricately woven baskets to modern sculpture and contemporary Alaskan art. There's even an entire wing dedicated to an in-depth exploration of Alaska's natural, historical, and cultural history. Whether you're into anthropology, fine art, or just looking for a way to get a deeper understanding of the last frontier, the Museum of the North is a can't-miss stop. So we're on our way to see the Alaska Pipeline, which is going to be cool.
It is going to be cool.
Do you have any fun facts about the Alaska Pipeline?
I'm so glad you asked. I do.
I don't want to take them for granted.
Are you saying granite? Well, yeah. It's granted with a D. Take things for granted. Did you actually think it was?
Hurt your sentiments.
Yes. Yeah. So the pipeline was built after the 1973 oil crisis. And if anybody is our age or older, you would remember the days when you had to go to the gas station on even or odd days.
Depending upon your license plate.
The lines were around the block. It was a 2-year construction from 1975 to 1977, and the first barrel passed through in 1977.
Those are fun facts.
I'm glad you think so.
There you go. Fun facts about the Alaska Pipeline, which goes from
Prudhoe Bay, 800 miles to Valdez, Alaska.
And we'll be going to Valdez, but not to Prudhoe Bay, at least on this trip.
Our main reason to be in Fairbanks was so we could fly up above the Arctic Circle to Bettles. The lodge offers special packages for us crazy national park collectors. When it's not wintertime, this is the only way to reach remote villages that aren't connected by roads. When you arrive at the terminal, they weigh you and your bags. Then when it's time to board, they shout your name. Then you and the other passengers follow the pilot to the Cessna Caravan, and once everyone is comfortably seated, the pilot gives a quick safety briefing.
There's a fire extinguisher by my left knee on the door. On top of the plane, in front of the tail's emergency locator beacon. Weather's not very good here with the smoke and rain, etc., etc. Clear in Bettles, looks like a nice day. About the Yukon River, about 70 miles west here, looks like it starts clearing up and get west of that smoke, so it shouldn't have anything up in Bettles.
As promised, the weather was not great in the beginning. Rain and wildfire smoke meant we wouldn't be able to see very much. But once we crossed the Yukon River, just like he said, the sky cleared up. And as we passed the Arctic Circle, everyone had their faces pressed to the windows. About an hour and 15 minutes after takeoff, we landed in Bettles, where we were met by Eric Fox, the owner and proprietor of Bettles Lodge, who said he could recognize national park collectors like us a mile away. We think he says that to all the guests. We didn't care. We were just so excited to finally be here.
Bettles Lodge has its roots in Alaska's early aviation history. First built by Wien Alaska Airlines in 1948, the lodge is listed on the National Register of Historic Places and is the center of operations, offering meals and a warm gathering place for guests. Park chasers stay in Bettles Lodge's Aurora building, which offers private rooms, and a communal lounge that carries forward the main lodge's charm and hospitality. For some, Bettles Lodge is a gateway to the parks. For others, an unexpected refuge, whether arriving on foot, by raft, or by air. The adjacent airstrip was built by the U.S. Navy in 1945 as a refueling and emergency stop between Fairbanks and the National Petroleum Reserve. Bettles isn't just remote, it's beyond remote. This little village on the Koyukuk River is a true outpost in the Alaskan wilderness and is reachable only by air in the spring, summer, and fall, and by ice road in the winter. The town is tiny. The school's shut down and for sale. Only a few kids in town now, and they're homeschooled. There's a flight service station providing weather information for pilots, a power plant running on flown-in diesel, the phone company offices, serviced by satellite only, and the most unique post office we've ever seen. Not only are the hours, shall we say, flexible, this post office also doubles as the postmaster's home. Need a box? Just grab one off the kitchen counter. This is life in Bettles. Quiet, rugged, and completely unforgettable. We are coming to you today from above the Arctic Circle. We are in
Bettles, Alaska.
In case you can't tell, we were up a bit early this morning. The previous night, Eric and Heather Fox hosted a community appreciation night celebrating their 10 years at Bettles Lodge, complete with a steak dinner. The whole community was there, even the postmaster. But this morning, we were up particularly early. Don't let the midnight sun fool you. Because, as we learned the previous day, aviation weather in Alaska can be unpredictable, and today's forecast called for strong winds, low ceilings, and an approaching storm.
Right up here, there's a low pressure up in the Arctic Ocean. The front comes down like this. It's helping to funnel moisture in along it, so areas of the North
Bettles Lodge warns its guests in advance that park flights are not guaranteed, so despite these smiling faces, we were a little worried the flight might not happen. Over breakfast, we got word that we'd be flying, though landing in Kobuk was still a maybe. Flights usually head west to Kobuk Valley for lunch before continuing to gates of the Arctic and returning to Bettles. But today, with the winds coming in strong, the route was reversed. Headwinds on the way out, tailwinds coming back. We were quickly shuttled to the dock at VOR Lake, got the thumbs up from the Bettles crew, and took off with pilot Johan at the controls and a few other park chasers joining us for the ride.
After an amazing flight, Johan, whose day job is as a 767 pilot, touched down on Walker Lake, taxied to the beach, and we were on the ground in Gates of the Arctic National Park. We took several pictures because, when will we ever be back? The views were incredible. And then we hiked over a small hill to another beach with still more incredible views. There are no trails in Gates. You just walk on the tundra, which feels like walking on a sponge.
We are at Gates of the Arctic National Park.
We are 2 of 5 people here today, plus 1
6, that'd be the pilot.
Yeah.
Gates of the Arctic is the 63rd most visited national park. Any fun facts? I know you like the fun facts.
Yeah, I have one fun fact. The mountain range is the northernmost range of the Rockies.
Is that the Brooks Range?
Yes.
So we are here after about a 1-hour flight from Bettles on the de Havilland Otter Floatplane. Really nice flight. A little hazy today.
Yeah.
But still a beautiful flight.
Yeah.
There is a wildfire in the area that we flew over. That was kind of interesting. They'll just let it burn because it's nowhere near anybody and it's sort of a natural process. We are here at
Walker Lake.
And we'll be here for about an hour before we take off and head to Kobuk Valley National Park. But just gorgeous, amazing scenery. Saw a couple of moose on the way. And yeah, here we are.
Yeah. While some of the guys fished, we just appreciated the reason this park exists. Untouched vast wilderness where there are no roads, no trails, and no visitor centers inside the park. Soon we were taxiing for takeoff to see if we could make Kobuk Valley after all. Once again, the scenery was breathtaking. The closer we got to Kobuk, the lower the cloud ceiling got, and the larger the rain showers loomed ahead. To his credit, Johan made sure to circle the Great Kobuk Sand Dunes, the largest active sand dunes in the Arctic, still being formed by glacial outwash. His usual landing site was obscured by rain and clouds, and despite the strong winds and approaching rainstorms, he circled the Kobuk River and finally found a place to land. If only for the briefest time, so we could all get our photos before taking off again back toward Bettles. Thanks to a strong tailwind, we got back to Bettles super fast, where we enjoyed the box lunch from the plane on the lodge porch with Margie and a friend. And then we walked over to the visitor center. Yes, it's in Bettles, where I stamped my passport for Gates of the Arctic. Can't stamp it before the visit, am I right?
The next morning after breakfast, our Wright Air Cessna Caravan arrived, bringing a pallet of dog food for the local sled dogs, and we were on our way back to Fairbanks. As usual, the weather wasn't great for flying, but our pilot exuded confidence, leaving us to look out the window a bit wistfully as the float planes went by just before we landed in Fairbanks. Before hitching up the Airstream and driving south from Fairbanks, we made a stop at the Morris Thompson Cultural and Visitor Center. We spent some time exploring the exhibits, reflecting on the previous days, and Donna proudly added a stamp for Kobuk Valley to her National Park passport. While we were there, we also learned about a wildfire that had closed Denali National Park, our planned next stop on our journey. Like many, we needed to figure out a plan B, and fast. We'll cover that next time. But before we close, we wanted to take one final look back at a journey that amazed, inspired, and left us truly awestruck. It's hard to put into words what this day and this trip meant to us. It was nothing short of extraordinary. The weather was uncertain, and while we were fortunate to make the journey, others that week were not. We don't take that lightly. We know how fortunate we were. This was an expensive journey for such a short time in these two national parks, and admittedly, it was a stretch. But it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience and worth every mile, every dollar, and every ounce of uncertainty. Part of what made this trip so meaningful was how we experienced it. Only from the air can you begin to grasp the staggering scale of Alaska, the vastness of its wilderness, and just how much of this land remains untouched. It's humbling, and it deepened our understanding of why it matters, why it must be protected. We feel blessed and incredibly grateful, not because we checked off 2 boxes from a list of 63, but for what we witnessed, for the people we met in Bettles, Johan, Michaela, Ranger Indigo, Jason, Heather, Eric, the rest of the Bettles Lodge staff, fellow National Park collectors, and of course the postmaster. But most of all, we're grateful for the memories we carried home and for the rare privilege of having stood in these vast, wild spaces, if only for a moment. We're looking forward to sharing more of our adventures in the last frontier with you on our next episode of Destinations, Dents, and Discoveries. We'll see you next time. Well, we've just finished listening to Paul Simon's Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes, because the river's called the Tanana River, and you'll excuse my singing, but ta-na-na-na-na.
You don't want me to sing.
And then we walked over to the visitor center. Yes, it's in Bettles, where I stamped my passport for Gates of the Arctic. Can't stamp it. And then we walked over to the visitor center. Yes, it's in Bettles, where I stamped my passport for Gates of the Arctic. Can't stamp it. My God, the crap!
We're going to use this in the bloopers.
And then we walked over to the visitor center. Yes, it's in Bettles, where I stamped my passport for Gates of the Arctic.
Welcome back. On this episode,
We don't know why the truck started.
are you sitting on your keys?
Apparently so. And apparently I put all the windows down, but I didn't know I could do that with my key. Excuse me while I go turn the truck off.